what comes up for me with the Mark Wahlberg thing is just a side note for anybody else who's not, like anything, if it's not your trigger, it doesn't fucking matter to you. But in my world, it is a constant reminder that I'm just not that guy. Or at least the little boy in me keeps wanting to say that I'm just not that guy. I'm this guy, and I walk around being this guy, and I'm happy with this guy, and I love you guys who kind of dig this guy, and I love you guys. Okay? But in the back of my head all the time is, I'm not that dude. And, but not this. I'm not that dude, and that's okay. More importantly, yeah, you may not be that dude, you may not be this dude, but who you are matters. It's another week. It's your boy Mark. Thanks for joining me. And just a little just want to first of all, hi Kaylin.
Hey Mark, how are you doing?
That's a very loaded question, buddy. I think every week I say that. It's a very loaded question. I remember last time I saw you, I was not feeling well.
Yeah, you took a dip in some unsanitary water.
I swam in shit.
Remember. Yeah,
let's just call it what it is. I think that's what happened throughout Southern California, and apparently I got E. coli.
Oh boy!
And it has for those of you, no judgment, but who are trying the Ozempic or whatever to get that few pounds off, I suggest E. coli. It's free, and I'm at my goal weight. And I have a hobby, which is spending time in the bathroom. So it's been awesome. But I'm hydrating, and in a dedication to full transparency, the only thing that's kept me feeling okay, besides the fact that I'm on an antibiotic and I'm taking Advil and all the things and I'm hydrating, but a little bit of weed.
Oh, sure.
That makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little crampy this morning. So unfortunately, that means this may have a tendency to ramble. I wouldn't say that I'm high, but I feel like I need to let you know that this is the first time I've had just a touch before I've come to talk to you.
A little like a smoke or an edible, or what's your
I don't
what's your
believe in
choice?
edibles.
No?
No,
Yeah.
I'm from a different generation, but I did not smoke. I had this really mild pen.
Vape, yeah.
I had a hit before I came just to make sure I didn't have to leave in the middle of the episode. So, but maybe, I hope this doesn't become like a crutch.
It is medicine.
I had a mobile nurse come to the house yesterday because I was really in trouble, and I was getting really, really dehydrated, and so they come and they just give you normally it's like people do it, when they're in Vegas and they have hangovers and stuff. But he came to the house and just gave me like B complex and fluids and stuff like that. So I could
get one of those IV drips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come and they just IV drip you. But he was the one who said, you can take this medicine, that medicine for nausea and cramps and stuff like that, but that could leave you with some side effects. Have you tried a little bit of weed? Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to tell me twice. I liked that a lot, and it made me like him even more. But truthfully, fucking worked. Like a charm. Had an appetite, was able to eat, like everything. So there you go. There's my little testament to that. But so that being said, so I've been on the couch for quite some time, not because of the weed, but because of the sickness.
Right.
And so what have I been doing?
Been watching TV.
Lots and lots of TV. Lots and lots of TV. I saw The Whole Bear.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it because I think it's too soon to
Don't want to spoil.
But it leaves me confused and stressed. And
did you watch that final episode and understand what I was talking about
have to
last
watch it
week?
again.
Okay.
I have to watch it again because I wasn't feeling well. But I think I do.
Okay.
I think the whiplash thing kind of gave it, I think I do.
Yeah.
But the thing about The Bear, which I think is wonderful, is they don't tell you the story. Like, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
You have to have an opinion. And the only thing that kind of was like, is like, I can't watch a whole episode of really, really tight shots of people doing nothing but feeling things, which is a lot of the band. Yeah. And although the faces are, all of them are so great. I don't think it's a spoiler, but the episode when his sister gives birth.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
It's fantastic.
One
of the greats.
Emmy Award winning.
Yeah.
Golden Globe Award winning.
Yeah.
Both of them. And the dynamic of that.
Yeah.
I mean, so check that out. But that is not the show that I've been obsessing about. And it's not even the show I'm obsessing about. But someone on one of these shows, like last week with Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders from Netflix, which is a big hit. Oh, by the way, Goldie, my daughter, was like doing everybody's doing the thunder dance. Thunder, da-da-da-da-da-da, which is on the thing. And my daughter, is a former professional ballerina, and she's been all obsessed like I have. But she did like her version on TikTok, and the coach of Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders liked her video.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, and she got 500,000 views, which pisses me off because that's another episode. I don't know if this is going to be the day, but I'm putting the pin in it right now. I'm declaring it right now that in my whole life, I have avoided talking about the fact that I share a name with Mark Wahlberg. I feel like if I kind of go there, I'm trying to steal his thunder. Like, although that's a joke because
I think he's got too much thunder to steal at this point.
I can't even touch his thunder. I can't reach it. But I feel like it looks like I'm trying to connect to his fame. And so I've had this, but that
on that note, and we won't get into it today. It'll be a later episode, but that's also like something you have gone through your whole life.
All right,
so it is
Let's
also something that you have had to deal with. It's not a stealing thunder, it's a real thing.
Let's just do this, and I will just save the other episode. I just want to say this before we move on. George Kittle from Receivers on Netflix, by the way.
San Francisco tight end.
Tight end from the San Francisco 49ers. I want him to be my life coach. The power of fun. We'll talk about that at a different... All right, let's just go here. I've been putting it off for my whole life. Let's go here.
Let's go
because you went right to the core of my soul. So here's how this whole thing showed up for me today, this week. Fuck you, man. I love you for that.
Yeah.
So here's how this whole thing started.
Or did you get an Instagram DM of somebody wanting your judgment on your bench presses?
All day, every day. So that's all day, every day. We'll get into that. All right, we're going here now. I know it's no big deal to the rest of the world. This is like when someone is gay and they come out and everybody goes, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right? This is me going, this is my thing. And everybody's like, oh, fuck it, whatever. It's like not a thing. But you make the point that this thing may be self-generated because it's a story. And that's something valuable for you, is that we live out of stories we created as childhood, and it dictates a lot of things that happen in our life. So here's how this started. My phone ceased to recognize my face. Like face recognition.
You mean like when you unlock it?
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Like every app, I don't know who you are anymore. And I laughed because of what we're talking about is this story I have of kind of being second, kind of not being seen. It doesn't matter. I'm not important. Is that what you were alluding to? Is basically that kind of stuff?
I mean, sort of. I was just kind of alluding. I don't know how deep it goes with you, but I imagine it's pretty deep. It's
the fact that I'm almost in tears now. Does that give you any idea? I'm only kidding. It's a recurring theme, and I will give you marks in my. This is my marks in my life. Yeah. That's funny. Anyway, so I laughed at the fact that even my phone doesn't see me right now. And this is, oh, poor Mark. Here's the story. So I never planned to be in show business doing what I'm doing. That was not the plan. I mean, as I've talked about before, I was in this musical theater group, and I came out to California, and then I was at the singing waiter at the restaurant, and I met Robbie, and she was a performer. We got a job working on a cruise ship. Which, by the way, I owe you an episode on the cruise ship, the whole cruise ship thing. That's 6 months. Let's just say that if I did not have a wedding planned 2 weeks after we got off the ship, I'd still be there now.
Yeah.
And I'd be leather skin, 300 pounds with like illegitimate children and a drinking problem. This is the path I was on. Anyway, cruise chapter. So got off the cruise, got married. Robbie's an actress, and I had to get a job. So the intention was never to pursue being on-camera talent. I got a job at Dick Clark Productions because that DJ I told you about, the reason I was going to San Diego is because of his ex-wife and that family. So he's become very successful, but at the time he was an assistant at Dick Clark Productions to a big producer. He worked on New Year's Rockin' Eve, American Music Awards, things like that. And he got me a one-day job at Dick Clark's. So that's how I started. And the idea was to give up the dream of being an actor or anything to get a career, some kind of job, because I have no college degree, and I got a wife, and I'm way late on getting my shit together. Mm-hmm. And I have no marketable skills other than retail, because I could sell shoes.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that. So I go to work there, and just by a turn of fate, I end up being on, a warm-up guy. I think I've shared this with you. The guy doesn't show up, and Dick Clark says, give me the funny kid. And I become a warm-up guy. I become a host, and my life now becomes essentially on-camera talent doing TV shows. So grateful. But right in the start of it,
Boogie Nights comes out?
No, way before that. But yeah, when I was a PA, and this is the first of these not being seen moments. Okay, well, not the first, but when I was a PA for Dick Clark, Marky Mark was a guest on American Bandstand that I was the production coordinator for. So he was starting to be a thing. Okay? And then when I got my talk show, that was a big leap where I was sort of getting introduced as me, right? Yeah. To the world, bus benches and things like that. And Mark Wahlberg was now a Calvin Klein model, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, but more Marky Mark, not so much the Funky Bunch. And so I, at that point, already started avoiding, I didn't want any, he was coming up.
But he was coming up as Marky Mark.
Yeah, this is before the movie thing started, but he was a bigger name than me. He was Calvin Klein model. It's always been a bigger name. And I made a choice. I'm like, I don't really want to, I don't want to get in his way, and I don't want to be a guy who looks like I'm trying to confuse it so I get some juice. I got in the head about it a little bit, and it was brought to me a lot. It's confusing. So that's when I added my middle initial, Mark L. Wahlberg, which was really a head nod to, look, I'm not that dude. I'm a different dude, right? Acquiescing.
Yeah.
Acquiescing. To the point where my phone doesn't recognize me anymore. So anyway, and I've said I'm cool with that. But the number of cringe moments I have daily is exponential. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't get a DM with some jack dude showing me his chest. That may have nothing to do with Mark Wahlberg. It may just be that I'm dreamy. I don't know. I get that. I get a lot of stay prayed up. Whatever trend he's on, I've got to be well-versed in, right? So anyway, I always avoid it. Always do what I can to avoid it. And it keeps showing up like everywhere I go because he then becomes a huge star. And I'm a huge fan of his acting. I really, really am a huge fan. But it shows up like in ways that you really have to evolve as a human to not take personally, which I'm failing at. So things like this. Check into a hotel. Can I get an ID and a credit card? Sure. I know what's coming. And they look at it and go, Mark Wahlberg. So the common one I get is, Mark Wahlberg. Hey, you got a famous name? I'm like, no, dude. Really? That's amazing. I never say this. This is This is me. But what I get, and this has happened so many times. Mark Wahlberg. Oh, dude. Ha ha. Yeah, we saw this. My coworker's going to be so disappointed. Enjoy your stay.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. All the time. The best one, I think, was... I may have told you this. If I told you, stop me. I was doing Antiques Roadshow. I come off the flight.
Yeah, I don't. This doesn't sound familiar.
So I come off the flight. This is years ago. And I'm walking down the jetway, and these two guys recognize me. Like, they're there to see me. They came to the airport to see me because they knew I was coming for the show and blah, blah, blah. And so they, Mr. Wahlberg, Mr. Wahlberg, Mr. Wahlberg. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And they walk down. I walked down to them, and they're like, we love you. We've seen you on Shop You Drop and this one and that one. Like, they knew it was me.
Right.
And I'm like, great, man. And would you mind signing a picture? Sure, guys. And hand me a picture of Mark Wahlberg. So the only time I've ever kind of like played with it, like the joke of it, was when I did that thing Jay Longino was here. Sneakerheads, yeah. And the truth is, like, who cares? Only me. Only me. Who cares? It was funny, and nobody.
Right.
There was no impact. And the truth is, I don't even know if he knows I exist, and it's okay.
If you want to hear that whole episode, by the way, go back to the Jay Longino episode. It was one of our first, and it's a great story.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. It was Sneakerheads, which, by the way, Netflix.
Yeah. It's a great network.
So. But what I really want to do is tie this into what we can all take away from this, because it's a couple things. One is you can't avoid cringe, but where does cringe come from? Right? And cringe comes from the feeling in my stomach when it's about what you think of me is why I cringe. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true for a lot of cringe. Sometimes cringe is behavior. I think that works too. Sometimes it's behavior you do that you're not proud of, and you go, "Oh, I remember that time." Right? But even that is that moment you did it. How that was perceived is what's cringy about it. If nobody saw it, it would be a little less cringy.
Right, but you also don't entirely know how it was perceived. Most of what you're thinking about is just in your own head.
100%. Everything I'm telling you is, and I'm going to say to all of you. And you too, Kaylin, although you are pretty evolved, that there is a story we live out of that manifests in strange ways. So what I'm getting to is I'm not so sure I didn't create, like I was coming here to say that there are two Mark Wahlbergs. There's the famous Mark Wahlberg, and then there's me, Mark Wahlberg, right?
Who's also famous. I mean.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I feel like I'm like grade growing there. I was like, just give me some love. But then my wife said, wait a minute, there's far more than two Mark Wahlbergs. There's the Mark Wahlberg, the actor.
Good point.
There's Mark Wahlberg, you. Then there's TV's Mark L. Wahlberg, who is really great to be around and rarely comes home. Then there's Mark Wahlberg on the couch. You know what I mean? So we could break it down that way. But what I really wanted to do to stay on topic a little bit is talk about the fact that our story dictates so much of who we say we are, and it's just not true. And every bit of proof I have in my life proves this wrong, but I keep somehow subconsciously buying into the story that may have come from my mom. So here's the deal. When I was a kid, I think my mom thought I was really special, right? So she made a point to let me know I'm not special all the time, so that I didn't get a big head. Mm-hmm. And it was a running joke. And so throughout my life and career, I've seen this recurring theme of almost, or second, or it's okay, I don't matter as much as this, and taking the L over and over and over again, and still being successful. Basically a story of, this is plenty, and I'm not worth more. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
This might be the weed talking, I'm just saying. So I laughed when I was thinking about this, talking about Mark Wahlberg, and the truth is, I don't lose sleep over the Mark Wahlberg thing, but I do spend extra effort making reservations, having things delivered to the house, being clear when I speak to anybody and have to give my name. Like every single time I feel like I need to clarify, right? And Robbie, by the way, leans into the other side of it.
I was going to say, maybe not with people that you're close to, but a hotel or a service that you're getting.
Yeah, I can't.
You don't need to distinguish. You can just put the name out there and let it sit.
That's the cringe for me. So I've warned my family within an inch of of their lives, you better fucking clarify before you do anything, because I don't want anybody giving you shit because they think it's the other guy and you tricked them out of it. And it comes out of things like showing up to like golf tournaments and shit that I've been invited to as a celebrity, and I show up and they're like, oh, they thought they were getting the other guy, and I show up, and then it's a day of that. So that's happened.
Mark Wahlberg does love golf too, so yeah.
So I can't even have that. Not only that, but Chris Harrison played the AC Championship, and I watched him on TV playing, so I look like him, or I used to, and I used to get that all the time. And I share the name with Mark Wahlberg. Both are great golfers playing on the, for free in Tahoe and whatever.
Yeah.
And he has a golf course in his backyard, and I'm literally chipping, in my backyard on my little patch of fake grass. The point I'm getting at is that based on what we say about ourselves is how we hold ourselves. And it's a lie. You've said it over and over again. The people around me see me and respond to me in a different way than I'm responding to me.
Yeah.
And part of that is you can write off as, keeps me humble, and that's a charm, and people dig that I'm not full of myself and I'm a man of the people, whatever. But the truth is, it's not wearing your power. And I think a lot of us do this. I think a lot of us do, I'm not really worth that effort. It's fine. I'm good. Those phrases. But getting back to Robbie's the other side of it. Like when she goes to check in or something, and the Mark Wahlberg thing comes up and says, oh, Mark Wahlberg is your husband? She's like, and they're like, is he famous? And she goes, yes. And then deadpans them. And I'm crawling out of my fucking
She's not
skin.
wrong.
Thanks, but I can't even say thanks, right? So, and I think it goes to a bigger thing. This whole story I have also is that I don't particularly love the trapping part. Like, I hold the fame thing, the celebrity thing, at arm's distance. It's uncomfortable and toxic to me because, for this reason, when you get a show and the show's popping off, right, you become a little bit famous for a short time more than normal.
Yeah.
And people give you shit.
Sure.
And they treat you a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuff you didn't ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Attention you didn't want. Hold on. You didn't ask for it, you didn't want, but then they give it to you, and it's like a drug. And then you're like, oh, this is delicious.
Yeah.
And then the show finishes, and no one speaks to you again.
It all goes away.
And so, but they got you, right?
Yeah.
They got you a little hooked on the deliciousness, and then it kind of goes away. And then there's the other part of it, which Robbie talks about, which is compare and despair, is that now I can look at everybody else posting all of the stuff, right? And I got to remind myself through all of it is that I don't really value that stuff until I think about being less than and why I don't have stuff.
You don't value it till it's gone. Is that what you're saying?
Until I compare it to something else.
Yeah. See, that's probably where you're going wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't compare it. Just appreciate it.
Okay. Or better than just appreciate it is be happy for others having what appears to be more or different. Right?
Yeah.
So what comes up for me with the Mark Wahlberg thing is just a side note for anybody else who's not, like anything, if it's not your trigger, it doesn't fucking matter to you. But in my world, it is a constant reminder that I'm just not that guy. Or at least the little boy in me keeps wanting to say that I'm just not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm this guy, and I walk around being this guy, and I'm happy with this guy, and I love you guys who kind of dig this guy, and I love you guys. Okay? But in the back of my head all the time is, I'm not that dude. And, but not this. I'm not that dude, and that's okay. More importantly, yeah, you may not be that dude, you may not be this dude, but who you are matters, right? It was the whole thing with the podcast. It was like I couldn't seem to get my head around coming here and talking to you because I'm like, what the fuck do I have to say that anybody cares about? And my daughter's like, everybody's talking about themselves on every podcast. Just go there, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so, the face recognition thing made me feel the same. I joked. It was a joke for me. I'm like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But because it is a perpetuating myth that I perpetuate, that I'm just not worth seeing to some degree. Mm-hmm. I'm really going here and wallowing in this because I hope that it'll land for some of you because, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous I feel a little exposed right now, but I think there's truths in this. I think we have beliefs about ourselves that are just not true, that keep us from really going forward and excelling and living our best life. And I have to constantly, through affirmations and other things that I resist, get myself back in alignment to, I do matter. What I do is great. Who I am is great. I am loved and I love. All these affirmations that I hate doing, but Robbie makes me and make me better. So, but in my life, I have to, the other thing that helps me grow is when you get real about your patterns.
Yeah.
The things that keep recurring. Because the truth is, when you're looking at yourself, remember I talked about self-care is easy on the things you can see, but it's not so easy on the things you can't see. Well, what you can't see are these patterns because sometimes they're a little slippery and you don't connect that this is similar to that. But there is a recurring theme in my life of almost greatness. So last week was almost made it on tour.
Yeah.
Right? Dick Clark Productions, American Bandstand, longest running show on TV, most beloved host ever, is going to step down. You know the story?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I almost got Bandstand. I got Bandstand, and then I didn't. Right? Okay. Worked out perfectly for me. Whoever got American Bandstand, I don't know where he is now, and things have worked out perfectly. It always works out perfectly. But there is a litany of things like this, almost, that I feel like I'm probably perpetuating. And when I close the door on these, when I catch myself living, when I catch myself giving power to the story, I see what gets manifested. When I catch myself giving power to the story and go, wait a minute, I can correct it. Mm-hmm. I can affirm it. I can say, hey, hold on, be nicer to yourself. Look what you do. Give myself some flowers. And then shifts happen, like greatness happens, things happen. But I really think it is a constant battle to say nice things to yourself.
Yeah.
And recognize when you're not, because that's the part that gets slippery for me, is that I'll be really spiraling in a, feeling of worthlessness that goes unchecked. Like, because it's a default. It's a default of going, I don't really matter. It's okay. I come from a family of I'm fine. Like, we don't take Advil when we have a headache. Mm-hmm. Robbie's like, you deserve to feel better. Take the Advil. I'm like, I'm okay. I'll be all right. And it's just a perpetuating story that keeps going. And so I'm really, I think because I've been sick and I've been feeling bad, I've had time to think about it, and I've been really couldn't do anything. I'm barely watching anything. It's just laying there. And I really realized, I literally said to Robbie, if I wasn't married, I would have died this week, because I probably wouldn't get up to get water. I wouldn't take an Advil, wouldn't call a doctor. I just wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I admire those people who are really able to stand up and say, I matter here, and they don't give a fuck who they're going to piss off in the process. Because here's another thing, because other people's feelings being hurt is less important than them mattering. Right?
Yeah.
But for me, that's what I have to work on a lot. Other people's feelings being hurt far outweighs my feelings being hurt.
Right. You're giving too much weight to other people and their perceptions of things.
I say it
even
all
though
the time,
you don't really know what they are.
I'm willing to give my power to anyone who wants it. Anyone who wants it. Except that when I get out of myself is when I am my most powerful. When we get out of ourselves is when we are most powerful. And then it becomes a laser beam, a really great, support of others, and I'm out of that. Like there's none of that conversation. I guess I need to, I always say that things either happen to you or for you. Let's make this a for you. I can't believe it's taking me this long to say this. Let's make that every single time there's a Mark Wahlberg moment, it's an affirmation of me mattering.
Yeah.
What if that's what I do now, is that every time it happens, it'll be far more than you're even supposed to do affirmations. Like I will become like fucking Ram Dass behind this. But every time it comes up, I'm going to say a phrase of, thank you, I matter.
There you go.
This is so stupid. You know why it's stupid?
Why?
Because how I feel doesn't matter. It's just remarkable to me when I came up and I thought, what if my whole story created that Mark Wahlberg becomes the biggest star in the world and I have his name, right? What if that's it? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not so sure that the world doesn't work that way anyway. The universe doesn't work that way anyway. Like, what if that's how that goes down? Like, you just, well, that's the Matrix conversation, that you create a story and everything manifests that way and it's just your movie that you're in. But I think that's the answer. Thank you once again, Kaylin.
You're welcome.
Making me a better person. But I think the answer is to find the thing that makes you cringe, that makes you feel terrible about yourself, especially if it recurs, and choose to let that be the catalyst to trigger you back into the right talk. Because if it's not natural for me or you, then you're going to have to make some effort to improve. Like if it's not natural, you're going to just keep falling right back in the trap, getting pulled right back by a trigger every single time. So what has worked for me in the past is putting a pin in behavior or phrases I hear coming out of my mouth that are toxic or running me down, and changing that phrase in that moment. And I've seen great changes in my life behind that, in money and other stuff. I've talked about it over and over again, is that the way I manifest greatness, which happens a lot in my life, is when I remember to stop my feeling, or label my feelings, stop what I'm doing, change what I'm doing to something that brings me joy, and gets me out of myself, and be of service. And then I start cooking again. So this is an area that I've just gone, it's the dirty little secret. I don't really want to deal with it. I'm just going to continue just making this a non-thing. And what it's done is become this ridiculously big thing. So now, thanks to Kaylin's coaching and your silence but love through the lens and the microphone, anytime it comes up, you're not the famous Mark Wahlberg. Hey, you got the same name as Mark Wahlberg. Or my favorite, are you guys brothers? And I'm like, yeah, because she couldn't come up with two names. Mark and Mark. That was basically it.
Can I give you another tip on how to approach this that might help?
Anything.
You got to laugh at it. You got to make fun of it.
Yeah,
you got to make it a
tough.
fun, funny thing. You got to, being able to laugh at yourself and the cringe, that will solve, I think, a lot of life problems.
The truth is when I tell the stories of funny things, I think Tony Hawk does this. I think it's a bit Tony Hawk does when people go, hey, you look like Tony Hawk.
I've seen his Twitter account. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because Tony Hawk's a fucking goat.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you're right. I think there are two takeaways. One is when it shows up, recognize that that's a thing now, and you give it way too much power. So it's funny, and affirm that you matter, and he does too. You both get to exist in this world and be terrific. By the way, you're always welcome, Mark, to come on and be on the podcast. Love to have you.
That would be fun.
Probably not going to do Zoom. I want you to come to the studio. I mean, if you're cool with it. Yeah, I think that's the answer, is that we got to take the things that make us cringe, that we're giving power to, that really are stupid, laugh at the fact that we've given it power. Saying out loud already takes most of the power away. And use it as a reminder in that moment, oh, this used to get me. Now it's this. Like, flip the script.
Yeah.
So this is another great therapy session by you, Kaylin. It takes one sentence and you get me just right size. And I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I feel like this. I feel like, again, I'm not going to worry about how people are listening to this. Although I'm really worried about people who are listening to this, like I'm this whiny little bitch. But just having had the conversation about it already makes it funnier to me. Because it's been
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious, just from an outside perspective. So, like, it's very funny.
It used to be, and I'm going to just
embrace that
you're not laughing at me, you're laughing
that.
with me.
Yeah.
But it's like this. Every time I do radio, because when a show would launch back in the day, and even up to recently, they would set up radio interviews. So you do, like, every 6 minutes would be a new interview, a new station. And I'd have 12 of them, right?
Yeah.
Now, because I've been working recently and the world is smarter, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
They don't do this joke as much. 15 radio stations, I come on the air and they, hey, on the air, we're coming up with this is Mark Wahlberg. And I'm like, oh, right. And then, hey, so in Boogie Nights, or, whatever, every single interview. And I got to go, yeah. When truly it's making me feel terrible. And I laugh now because on the basketball court, when somebody chirping at me, one of my favorite things to do is say back to them is like, hey, now stop it. That hurts my feelings. And it kind of diffuses it in a funny way.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if I just had said it right off the bat. That hurts my feelings, But instead, I would play along, or I eviscerated one guy. He's like, before we come on the air, he's like, I'm going to probably do a joke about Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg, are you cool with it? And he was like, I'm like, well, dude, you're like my 11th interview, so it better be a good joke, because if it isn't, I'm going to just slay you. I'm just going to like... And he came on with some, hey, so something Boogie Nights, some really lame joke. And I lost it. I'm just like, and that's why you're on in the afternoon in Market 147 in Arkansas, buddy. Yeah. And it made me just look small. It was just me just venoming out. Anyway, it is funny.
It is funny.
If I choose to laugh at the joke too.
Yeah.
Which we did on the Sneakerheads thing. That was the whole point, is that we're laughing at the joke. And just because it's funny, and just because not everybody gets it, and the mistakes will happen all the time, doesn't mean that I'm not seen by everybody other than my phone. Because my phone literally, it's almost like my phone when I go to log on says, wait a minute, you're not Mark Wahlberg. You're not the guy from that movie. Anyway, all right. I feel like we got to some personal growth. I think I'm going to be embarrassed about this when it drops. You
know what that means?
What?
It's a good podcast.
Is that right?
It's a good episode.
Is that what it is? I'm just going to come here and just cringe out every fucking week and then...
yeah.
Okay.
People love cringe.
All right. God knows. That's worth it. Give the kids what they want.
As long as you can just laugh at it. Take all that power away from them. They love it. You love it.
Funny. It's funny. You know what? You're right. So this is what I've learned. You matter. No matter what your head tells you, because nobody else is really telling you you don't. You are. And you can take the things that make you cringe and turn them into a reminder to affirm something stronger, which brings me to what we'll talk about next week, which is my new life coach, George Kittle from the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
All right, you guys, thanks for bearing with me. Slightly buzzed, certainly rambly, and a little whiny. Love you. See you next week.